everyone. How are you doing? It is Tuesday night, August 9th, and I'm very excited that tonight we're going to talk about voice. It's knowledge or nonsense. You know, I like to vet, is something knowledge or is it nonsense? And we live in a time where, because of social media and other things, where a lot of people are speaking, but it's not always something that's vetted. It's not always something that's tried and true. And the person sometimes that's speaking may not even be an accurate representation of what they are presenting. So tonight we're going to talk about voice. We have a very nice panel of individuals that can really give insight and speak to different things in the healthcare industry. And of course, I've said it 2 to 3 times. I'm going to say it 6 more times. I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm excited. So you know what to do. Bring your questions, share this video. If you have a comment or a question, you can put it right in the chat. This is a live airing. This is a live broadcast. So we're right here real time, and we'll bring some responses to you. If there's something you want to share, but you're a little concerned about sharing it under your name, you can text that to 214-717-5921. And so without further ado, I say give you a couple of seconds so you can share the video. But I'm going to play this intro, and we're going to bring our guests in, and we're going to start talking about voice. Hopefully you'll be inspired to be more intentional with your voice. If you're already being intentional, you can still be more intentional. We can pick new places to direct it. But let's find out about voice and what voice really is. All right, we'll be right back. Share the video. Hello, welcome fellow colleagues and executives and industry voices and trailblazers and people. Some of us maybe even know where some bodies are, but we have seen the come and we've seen the go in this industry. And I just want to welcome you to Knowledge or Nonsense. We have Marie Brewer with us, Jamel Ross, Luella Dijon, Marjorie Wall. My name is Sharon Combs, and tonight we're talking about voice. So welcome, ladies.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey. All right, I'm going to jump right in. Good evening, Lisa. How are you? Hey, Sarah. How you guys doing tonight? Y'all share this video, and I bet you they're ready. I said I'm going to have a pen and papers. I bet you they have pen and paper too. So just know they're listening. They're listening. All right, first things first. Let's talk to Marie. Marie, glad to have you here on Knowledge or Nonsense. When you saw the focus point for tonight that we were going to talk about voice, what were some of your first thoughts?
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. I think my first thoughts were really about how you can use intentional influence to bridge gaps between departments, between stakeholders, and really just working on the connection between some of the problems we seek to solve and our own values and priorities.
Right. Excellent. How about you, Jamel? Oh, you're muted.
Yes, I am. And I do apologize. Good evening, everyone. Just like you, Sharon, I was intrigued and very excited that this was a topic, more so on a grassroots level. Trying to make sure everyone feels empowered, that their voice matters, so that all of them, you can just imagine it's like a choir. You can have someone that sings a solo, but when everybody sings together and they sing in their own parts, in their own voices, it makes a beautiful chorus. So I am excited about that because we want to empower everyone individually, no matter where you are, what your role is, your voice matters.
Excellent. Okay, Marjorie.
I love all that so much. And as you know, Sharon, voice is probably one of my favorite topics of all time. Voice and psychological safety, those two topics, and they're very intertwined. I think we are at such a unique place in our organizations where we're empowering employee voice and, that kind of professionalism movement that's going on. And it's really translated into social media and industry thought leaders and everything else. And I think it's just an incredible time right now in our industry. And I can't wait to see what all these voices are going to make happen, because it's transformational.
How about you, Luella? Because we say industry, and some people watching may think that only means SPD, but we're the whole surgery squad. How about you?
Yes, and I'm excited about it because we need to bring out those voices, but we also need to support people. Let those voices be heard, and as leaders, we are the ones to kind of bridge that gap to bring it out. So, and let everybody feel that your voice will be heard, and it matters because we're only there for the betterment of a patient, the betterment of ourselves also, and our growth.
Nice. All right, so here's the first question I'm putting out. How did you find your voice or get comfortable with your voice? I'm going to pick Jamel first, just because I know she loves me no matter what.
Yes. You saw my left eyebrow raised. Well, when did I find my voice? Wow. You know what? I really truly believe that's something that constantly evolves, that you're never just truly comfortable with having found everything that you want to say or how you want to express yourself, because what's going on around you evolves. However, when something became very important to me, when I divested of myself into something, that's when I knew I had to speak up and speak out. I started out as a nurse. And so in taking care of patients, there were things that I had to learn regardless of the era that I started in, because I'm a fossil. That was when the doctors ruled, and, they walked in, you ran and you hid. But you had at some point in time to understand that your perspective was valuable, and that you needed to be able to speak your truth. It doesn't mean that everyone appreciates it or aligns with it, but it is your truth. So learning to speak my truth and being willing to take whatever came with it as a result of owning my truth, it made me feel I just felt more comfortable with myself doing what I needed to do, that it empowered me even the more.
All right. Marie, how about you? When and how did you find your voice?
Very similar to the last response. I do think it's an evolving piece, but for me, it was about, as a young person, learning how to speak up for the things that mattered to me. And as I grew in my role as an advocate for the patient and then as an advocate for the team, I found that, I really found my niche as the advocate for my sterile processing family and then my larger surgical services family. But I had to be an advocate for myself first, if that makes sense, before I could advocate for anybody else. And so I found my voice by advocating for the things that I care about, whether that was social issues or whether it was SPD related issues, advocating for what was in my heart and what my purpose is.
All right. So let's do that a little bit further. You said you found you had to advocate for yourself first. Was that something that resonated with you, the other panelists here? Because I know some people started advocating. I've seen people advocate for the many,
yes,
and use the many to advocate for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say, like, if I wanted to advocate for Marjorie, but really I was doing it for me, it was helping me as well. And I'll be like, well, that's not fair. Marjorie has to work, in decontam the entire time, or she's worked 16 overnights. No one else does, but really I'm working overnight with her. And I'm saying this for Marjorie, but it may actually include me. So as far as the panel, was this something that you all learned how to advocate for yourself first? Or did you just maybe fall into advocating? Marjorie, since I've said your name a few times.
I know. So just so you know, decon is my favorite job assignment. So I will work 16 hours, 5 days a week, 7 days a week. If you push me, I'm down for that, just so we're clear. I'm actually kind of probably an odd person to ask that question for, because I am the worst advocate for myself. I've tried through my career and to get better at it, but what really drives me is being able to make a difference and to be able to advocate and make space for other people's voices. So I like being in groups where I can help make sure Marie's voice is heard, Sharon's voice is heard. Everyone has this safe environment to have their truth put out there. And then by hearing those truths in a safe place, that we can, make the magic happen to come up with the greater plan that's best for everyone. So for me, it's always kind of been about advocating for other people. But I think it is really important to be able to advocate for yourself as well.
Luella, how did you come to advocate for others? We've had you on the show before and you were advocating for your entire team.
Yes, I'm more for the team. I would leave myself behind and advocate for the team, only because I have found myself in places where, or experience where I do not want it to happen to somebody else. And based on my experience, I also feel there are things you do not want and there are things you want in life. So the things I do not want as a leader is what I go after. I will go after the things I think that's right, that's correct, and that will be, it's like humbling yourself. So I would give my team that exposure and support my team to give them their growth. So my voice would be the voice for my team, where I don't want my team to be like in shambles, or if something goes wrong with my team, I would take that responsibility, but I will also be able to share with my team and see where we can take it.
Yeah, I like that. I saw you nodding and making movement up there, Jamel. What's going on?
Yeah, because a lot of times our advocacy comes out of a personal experience, hurt or harm that we have experienced. Mm-hmm. If we're going to be very honest about it. And so, Bella was speaking. Sometimes I know myself, I had experienced embarrassment and, had some things not done appropriately to me. And that helped me to harness energy, saying that I would do whatever I needed to do to make sure that never happened to anyone else on my watch. And I mean, that's why I am as intense as I am, because I would never want anyone to experience what I had. And so I think when we really peel back the onion, that advocacy truly sometimes is spawned out of our own personal experiences that we've had.
Well said.
Well said. Clap, clap, snap, snap. Well said. Okay, so we're going to jump rope back and forth. We'll come back into that. I want to ask too, okay, so we're talking about voice. And I had a picture of a microphone, and I really like how the microphone was so crisp in the picture, but all of the action was away from the microphone. Like the microphone is something that we can use and we can point it. And please use your platforms to help, to advocate, to educate, to inspire, to make something better, to put something good out there. But the microphone is not always on. Mm-hmm. And I could see the work being done when the microphone wasn't there. So let's ask some questions about how have we advocated, or what are some tricks of the trade, shall we say, when we want to advocate for our people, not just as much as work or pay, but even to get them what they need so that they can be more successful in their role. Like advocating for equipment, advocating for, things that will allow people to be more effective in their role. Mm-hmm. Has anyone on this panel, have we advocated for that? Have we had to do that?
We all
I'll tell you, I'll go one.
You go where?
I'll do the one-on-one. I will go where I have to go and sit and have this conversation. I don't care who you are. I need equipment for my staff and my team to make it effective. Let's have this conversation. Do I need to speak with the CFO and show what it is I need it and why I need it? Then I'll write up my strategies and I'll wait for the meeting, and I will go to this office and wait have to. But I'm going to talk to you one-on-one, because I think sometimes people don't understand what you want. They just want it on paper. But sometimes you have to go in and sometimes even taught them to see what exactly you're looking for. and why you want it and how necessary it is for you to be able to utilize it, so that the team can do what they have to do. So provide the resources for your team.
That's what I'm talking about. And the mic isn't on when that's going on. That's something that is going on. That's the day-to-day behind the scenes, like to make these things happen. And so your voice is still speaking even then. How about you, Marjorie?
So I mean, yes, but when I'm hearing that, when I'm thinking of it, my mind goes more into sometimes you have to invest in yourself and develop skills in yourself so that you can get your voice heard. So if we're talking about advocating for your crew to get tools and resources and equipment, you have to learn how to have those conversations, just like what you were talking about. Who to talk to, what CFO, what COO, who you need to build those relationships to be able to get your voice heard and get your employees' voices heard. You have to be able to build strategic relationships to ensure you can do that. And you may have to invest in yourself to build those skills, to build a business plan and know the right communication style to make that happen. And as leaders, whether it's OR directors, SPD directors, industry leaders, we have to do that to make sure that we are advocates and we are successful with advocacy.
Okay. I have one more question I want to ask us all before I take a quick commercial break. How do you guard your voice from becoming the detrimental voice? Because I know we all address problems, but how do you guard your voice, your influence, your impact? How do you guard that from becoming actually the negative or the destructive voice? Should I take a commercial and we come back and answer that? Do we need a couple of seconds? Are we good? Okay, I'll take a commercial. Hey, we'll be back in about 60 seconds. You guys know what to do. Share this video, place your comments in, and also let us know how you use your voice or how you even want to use your voice. We'll be right back.
Those in the know SIPS Consults. SIPS Consults is hiring. Confident, competent, and consistent. Starting as a consultant and a volunteer, SIPS has grown into a dynamic group of stellar sterile processing professionals, offering excellent benefits, 401k, and consultant in training program. We are hiring certified technicians, leads, supervisors, interim managers, educators, coordinators. Apply at recruiting@sipsconsults.com or dial 1-866-615-7977.
All right, and we're back. So how do we, I don't like guard against because that only fits on the negative. How do we decide how our voice is going to be used, even in addressing problems?
If I can jump in, I use framing a lot, meaning I'm very careful about how I frame my messaging. So I'll give you an example. If we're struggling in a campus in a department and we need to create an action plan, I never create an action plan because that sounds like a very negative frame. I call it an SPD improvement plan. So even when I'm addressing negative things, I refer to them as opportunities. So it's always choosing very, very thoughtfully on how you frame and address messages to make sure your voice is being heard in a very positive focus versus a negative focus. Yeah.
No, I like that. I like wordsmith. That's probably why I was like, hey, let's say that a different way. I like that. I like the framing. Luella. Then I'm going to come to you, Marie.
I would use transparency. I would use transparency, but I also know that you can be very diplomatic and tactful. So how you put your words together and how you fix your sentences to bring a message across is very important when you use your voice, especially when you have to address, make it known in the C-suite. So I would use be very tactful about and very diplomatic in how you address what you have to say to bring the message across.
Mm-hmm. Marie?
For me, that just comes down to putting the human being in the conversation first, and just some baseline emotional intelligence to help me moderate my own response when emotion comes back at me, to see the human being behind the conversation.
Okay. Well, let's circle back to the previous question, Jamel. We're going to circle back to the previous question. You had something you wanted to share. Hey, as Jamel is getting ready to speak, she's going to come off mute. I'm facilitating this, but y'all don't have to wait on me to ask a question. This is our panel. So if there's something you want to say, I'm here every week. They want to hear y'all. Trust. I know what you guys are bringing is A-list. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Jamel, you wanted to circle back to the previous question. Was there something?
Yes. Yeah. When we were talking about your voice and one of the things and one of the panelists mentioned was investing in yourself. But what's also key is knowing the language of your audience. You know, so like if you're in a relationship, you want to know their love language, you've got to know the language of your audience. That takes you so much further. You can't go in there all emotional because they don't relate to it the same way you do. But if you're talking to a CFO or a COO, and then you can share with them how you can either increase your productivity or you can save dollars or you can have cost avoidance. Understanding their language takes you so much further, and you may have to craft that message 4 different ways based upon who your audience is. So that is uber critical. Don't get defeated. You just kind of have to stop. And as Marie said, use your emotional intelligence and remove yourself the emotion out of it. Understand what is the goal or the objective. Who is your audience? And then craft those messages to this person that way, to this person that way. It's almost like you're dating several men at the same time. And you gotta make, say, Henry, Mark, John, Luke. You got to know who your audience is. But if you craft that message in their language, it is so much more beneficial. And then you will see yourself grow. You will understand. It also validates your knowledge of knowing your business. You know your book of business, and they're not going to come into your house and tell you how to raise your children. This is your house. So you might hire an interior decorator, but you will guide them as to what it is that you want to do.
I like that. And you mentioned like if it's this person that so CFO, COO, CNO, executive director, like your executive team, what are ways, Marie, what are ways outside of the box that maybe we can use our voice to get something?
Well, and before we even go there, just kind of jump back on this last topic. I think knowing your audience and how you make that actionable with who your audience is kind of building your tribe when you're going into these resource requests. And if I'm having issues with, Joint Commission or DMV or some of those issues, I'm going to be partnering with quality and infection prevention. We're going to be talking about patient risk and those type of issues. If I have injuries on my team, well, then I'm going to employee health and I'm going to my safety officer and I'm going to be looking for alternate funds for ergonomics, which you guys know those are hard to get sometimes. Mm-hmm. But again, framing it in the piece of safety, whereas if I'm talking to the C-suite, I'm going to be talking about risk. I'm going to talk about cost, return. It's your how you're directing it with, as she mentioned, like your 4 different folks that you're dating. That really is the truth. And sometimes when I'm getting my tribe together, I've phrased it very differently. So when we come together to talk about it, I have to somehow marry that. But as far as grant writing, that is something that I'm very passionate about because I don't know about all of you, but I've had a lot of capital requests denied, especially in the past couple of years with COVID and some of the strictures we're facing from a budgetary perspective. And for me, there is quite a bit of money out there. You just have to know how to phrase it correctly and setting yourself up with a simple grant request, working with your community donors or even your hospital foundation, your auxiliary, some of the different places. Some of the grants I've written have only been $7,000, but I also have one that was approved for over $75,000 for height adjustable sink for my team. So, there is, if you can speak the right love language to those folks you are looking to get some money to advocate for your people.
Yes.
That's the key, is learning and making sure that your goals are in alignment with the organization you're working with.
Yep. If I could just bring that back around one more time, Marie, thank you. That was like such a good example. Both of you guys, what you said, it was fabulous. And, you know, a lot of that is investing in yourself to have the skills to make sure your own department's voice is heard, because we're talking about voice, right? So
Yeah.
we're strategically doing this work to get the tools, resources, everything to support our staff. And then, like you said a moment ago, it comes back to transparency as well. So we do this work, we're transparent, we go back to our teams, we share with them how we heard them, how their voice mattered, and how because of what we learned from them and what they shared with us, we've done these things to get them the tools, support, and resources that they need to be successful, showing them that their voice matters, so they then feel more empowered to trust us and share more stuff. I mean, that's how we really find out what our people need.
This is so good. Listen, for those who are watching and those who will watch later, and for those of you who are like, man, that was good, and you want to tell somebody else about it, it's still going to be good the remainder of the show, but you definitely want to get minutes 17 through minutes 30, because everything that was just said was amazing, and it takes us out of just only what we see. Like sometimes we see people and we say, okay, well, that's Marjorie, she's going to speak on it. And then we don't do anything with our voice. It's like a qualify, disqualify. We qualify her, but by looking at her, now we're disqualifying what we may be able to bring. But that's why one of the hashtags for this show is we are our voice. We are our voice. And if it's one thing the pandemic showed me, is that if you don't use your voice, someone else will speak for you. You know, it wasn't too long ago, we had a lot of people who weren't even in healthcare speaking about things that probably would have been best left, or at least consult the people who are actually working in this area to have some insight and share some insight and experience and knowledge based on this. So yeah, I love that. As we're talking about advocating, using your voice, I've gone onto a tangent. So what are some other ways that we have used our voice? I feel like minds are moving now. What are some ways someone has helped you use your voice? Because we're all leaders on here, and I am big on leadership, having someone mentor you or help you to the next step. But at the same time, who are you helping? Who are you helping them learn how to advocate for themselves and for others? So is there someone that helped you learn how to advocate or learn how to use your voice, or created a safe space for you to use your voice? Does anyone come to mind?
Can I say Sharon?
Me, Sharon?
You, Sharon.
Oh,
How many
you're so
times
sweet.
have you mentored me? How many times have you encouraged me to put myself out there on podcasts and speaking engagements? I spoke at the CCSA conference in Vegas, and I don't know if I would have done that had I not seen you there last year and been so inspired. You make space for people to share their voices in the industry, and it's amazing. I'm sorry, Marie, you were going to jump in. Go ahead.
No, that was perfect.
I'm just snapping, but I want you guys to know that I'm snapping, not because you said my name, but because you out there doing it. Yes.
Yeah, but people have to make space for people to get out there and do it. And you do that. You give people a platform to have their voices heard. It's amazing.
Man, thank you, but kudos. All right, I'm done. Go ahead, Marie. Go ahead.
Good. I'd like to shout out for a lot of the folks that are working in the AMI working groups, because a more welcoming group you cannot find, whether it's David, whether it's Damien, whether it's Karen, Sue Klasik, Rose, all of those folks. And I wouldn't be me if I wasn't plugging for you guys to come to sit at the AMI tables and work. We need the end users right now because we're outnumbered. So all of those folks there were so welcoming, and literally sitting up at the table with some of those guys as a young leader was really an inspiring opportunity, and how much they did mentor, not only in the actual sessions, but outside of the sessions with how to frame questions, how to advocate for our technicians, as well as our needs. That to me was a very powerful moment, to have so many folks take an interest and really willing to help anybody jump on board and learn a new skill.
Okay. I love it. Thanks for shouting out the Amy board. I
Yeah.
would say Tina Cole from Skytron. That's a plug for Skytron via Tina Cole. You know, I don't know much about Skytron, but I know Tina Cole has been someone who has helped me and helped me find voice and tell me, hey, you need to go sit at these Amy meetings. You know, there's nothing in it for her. She's like, you need to go sit in these meetings and learn, and then you can weigh in and share your opinion as well. All right. So Luella and then Jamel, tell us, like, did someone help you advocate? Did you have to learn how to do it on your own? Like, how did that work? Luella,
For
you
me,
can
I
go
had
first.
to learn to do it. I had to learn to do it on my own. But I always used to take advice from my grandfather. Stand up
All
for
right.
yourself and stand up for the people that you care about. So that was
Do you
always
think
his
that
advice. Always stand up. He was
do you
always
think
telling
that
me,
helps
stand
you
out
be a
for the
better advocate? I'm sorry, it's a little lag. The fact that you really kind of learned it on your own and had to navigate that on your own, do you think that makes you even more passionate, like, because you know that that's a resource that some people may not have?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. Kudos to your pop. I'm sorry. Kudos to your
Thank you.
upline for sharing it with you. How about you, Jamel?
I think those of us that are of the older persuasion, the experienced persuasion, kind of scraped our knees and learned from there. So we have the battle scars. But the beautiful thing about that, it ingrained in us that that's not the path we want anyone else to have to travel. Granted, there's some things we're all going to have to learn on our own, but I think that is what, for myself, I can say, it has caused me to want to share everything I know with anybody that will sit still for 5 minutes. You're going to know what I know unless it's something confidential. My entire team of associates that I work with, it doesn't matter what your role is. If it's pertinent to us working together and getting the business done, guess what? You know, like metrics on how the department is functioning, any technician can tell you where we are. They're going to know what our rate is. I said, because this is our business that we're in together. I'm not taking all of this mess home and I'm worrying and I can't go to sleep at night. Oh, I don't think so. It's our business. And so when, like you're saying, the voice, what do we do outside of being in front of the microphone? It's what you do behind the scenes. Am I working alongside them? Am I letting them know how these actions and these activities and what their recommendations and suggestions, how that has positively or negatively affected how we're functioning? There are things that they have insights on seeing that I will never see because of the role that I'm holding and the things that I'm doing. But they have valuable insight. And how can we weave all of that together so we have one message? So we have that one message. I even let them know how I'm going to craft it. So they say we need another washer. I look at them, and anybody that knows me, I'm a little unorthodox because I just love life. So I like people to laugh and feel a part of everything. So I sit there and I say, why? Because we do. Why? And they'll say something. I'll just sit there and I'll keep saying why for about 10 minutes. Why? Why? As obviously I don't understand the language you talk and the words coming out of your mouth. You're going to have to convince me. I got the checkbook. You got to tell me why I'm going to write this check. And so I've taught just regular, a technician that's back there in decon can sit there and tell you about throughput. They can tell you about delays. Why? Because I have invested time to say, if you want this, you prove it to me so I can give voice to it, to the upline. So I think if we continue to invest in our team and share that information, we help them find their voice, and it makes it easier than them thinking I've got to wait until I become a manager or a director before I can say something. Oh, no, contraire. No. We need to start doing it right now, right where you are.
All right. Hey, so who are some voices that we may or may not know? Okay. Yeah, who are some voices that we may or may not know? Or even no. What are some roles of voices that we may or may not know? You know, Marie, I like what you were saying when you were actually identifying different areas that we collab with and that we partner with to work cohesively so that we can strengthen the voice when we have needs. What are some areas and departments that we may not know that could actually strengthen our voice?
A lot of times for me, it becomes the frontline staff in other areas, and how even pushing my own team out to do observations in different areas so they understand the downstream impact of our work, and whether that's, being a part of a baby being delivered, or it's something as simple as, a dental procedure or something, just kind of getting that influence. And just so that they realize that, their voice is important, their work matters, they matter. And I think it really helps from an emotional appeal standpoint of how they influence the end result, right? Because our technicians, a lot of folks, they'll talk about, well, I take care of the instruments. Well, really what you are infection preventionists. That's what you are. That's the core of what you do. So I think when we kind of get a little bit more of the value apparent at the frontline level, not only with my own staff, but the staff in other departments, we kind of form some cohesion and break down some silos that way.
So, I agree with you on that, and I'll expand that, because that is one thing I think the OR department needs to know. And not so much the scrub techs, because I think most times the scrub tech have an idea. But I think sometimes like circulators, once in a while, I think they need to go to Central Sterile and really see what it takes from the moment the instrument is down there to the whole processing, and understand, because sometimes it's like, I need that, SPD didn't give it to me, I want that SPD, but nobody really understands how important SPD is, and that it's more like Jamel said, the language that you want to speak to SPD. You probably can get the instrument, but if you know the language of how to get it, sometimes they would simply get it for you without feeling grouchy, without you feeling grumbling about it. But if you understood the amount of instruments they have to do and what it takes to make it to bring up to you, you probably have more appreciation if you cannot find something to speak to them and ask for it. So really, as leaders, we should be bridging that gap. And I think it's about time at this point in time that circulators in the operating room really need a little bit of orientation to the SPD department in a hospital. That's how. And if you can
hardwire it into your orientation. For example, our facility, any person that works in the surgical services operating room area, whether it's core tech, whether it's a nurse, whether it's a surge tech, a PA, any of them, they spend 3 days in SPD. And there's very specific questions with our competency, like, what is an estimated turnover time for the service line you've been hired for? What are the steps to move through that? So if you can make that actionable by hardwiring it, like you said, it is time, because, that shared knowledge is going to get us to a point where we have greater understanding of each other and some compassion for each other when things get tense.
Correct.
Because ultimately we're one team. So when we come back, I do want to ask, I love the fact that we're going in this direction, because for as long, and it's only been like a little over a decade that I've been in the sterilization and sterilization adjacent industry. And at the beginning, it's like the gap between SPD and OR. They're siblings, but at some point siblings begin to get along. It's like they stay 10-year-old siblings. Blaming and finger pointing. I don't know. Okay, now let me say they. There have been many instances of finger pointing and blaming, and almost celebrating when something went wrong with the other, like, see, I told you. But even siblings grow up and then they begin to have an appreciation of one another. And so I just want to know, like, how can we intentionally use our voice, not just for our department, but healthcare wide, to kind of bring some of this stuff together and pour water on some of the fires that aren't good fires. You know, some fires purify and some destroy. And sometimes with this, it's a destruction. All right, I've said enough there. Let me do this commercial break. We'll be back in about 60 seconds, and then we're going to take it home. We're going to take it to the house. All right, we'll be right back. All right, and we're back. You're watching Knowledge or Nonsense. We have Jamel Ross, Luella DeJean, Marie Brewer, Marjorie Wall, myself, Sharon Combs, and tonight we're talking about voice. Not just what we say, but also what we do when the spotlight isn't on us. What are ways that we navigate and work behind the scenes to enhance our voice, to strengthen our voice, to advocate more for our fellow employees and for the things that we need for healthcare, for patient safety, to minimize infection? What are ways that we use it there? And now the question in the room is, hey, you guys put your questions in the chat box. This is my last question unless I come up with another, but this is my last question. So put your questions in the chat box. How do we use our voice to get the siblings to stop fighting in the back seat? We're all in the same car. If the car crashes, we're all going to feel something, whiplash, a cut. How do we get the siblings to stop fighting? How do we use voice for that? Who's going to jump in?
I can go for it. I would say for me, it starts with creating a mutual purpose of why we're here and what we're doing. And then grounding that in evidence-based guidelines. So it's not Marie's way. It is a little bit more of a scientific-based fashion. And whenever dealing with difficult conversations, really trying to assume positive intent, right? Because what reasonable, rational person would, want to have disharmony and discontent? So really starting to work through that piece, using tools like crucial conversations to make sure that my path is clear. And lastly, for me, I hardwire with just culture. So driving the behaviors and the processes I want to see, get rid of that sibling rivalry to get that team from storming, past the norming into performing, right? So we want to use that just culture to help execute on our vision and values and those evidence-based protocols.
I'm going to circle back to that because I love that you use the storming, forming, norming, joining. I love that you use that. But I'm going to come back in just a second to just culture. Please remind me. Marjorie, how about you?
So similar, but a little bit different. So for me, it's really about focusing on the person in the team and understanding where they're coming from. I'll give you a quick example. OR versus SPD, sibling rivalry needs to stop. So point of use treatment of instruments, we ask the OR teams to do certain things and they feel like they're doing SPD's job for them. We ask SPD to do certain things in decontam and they don't understand why the OR team can't send it to them the right way. So what we do is we form these teams to look at it together. So part of it is getting the OR team to come to decontam and to understand what spaghetti instruments look like. And and how unsafe that is for SPD technicians' hands when they're having to go in there and manually clean all these instruments. And then we get SPD techs, in a very psychological, safe way into OR rooms to understand turnover and time pressures. So by creating this really, empathy-based understanding of what each team member is going through, they can have their voices heard, and they can also hear each other and start forming those trust and bonds and relationships that need to actually find processes that work for both teams.
I like that. I like everything, but that one hit me. I like that. Yeah, if that was a pet in front of me, I'd pet that one. I like that. I like that. Luella and Jamel, what about you all? How do you minimize?
I would say getting SPD involved and more engaged. So sometimes the OR have huddles where they look at the cases for the next day. And I think getting SPD at that level to come in and join those huddles and understand what's expected, and also having at some point to get OR to be downstairs with SPD. But I think getting to the huddle to understand what's going on is one way to stop, to kind of like, it's not going to really stop the rivalry, because I could see something that we really have to push forward and want together. But I think getting them more involved in OR and bridging that gap would probably help a little bit.
All right. Miss Ross. Miss Ross, how do you?
Yeah, I said for me, it's everything that everyone says. It's about being more informed, and then also being a part of, like you're saying with the huddles. One of the things that's really important, and I know it depends on the org structure of the facility, but if we can really create a culture where the OR and SPD are one unit, they're one unit. It doesn't matter if you're on the third floor and I'm on the first floor and we have to come down the elevator, we're still one unit. Creating that culture where once a month or every 2 months, whatever, once a month, OR and SPD need to have their staff meetings together or a big huddle meeting. And you create that culture where we share information. I know we talk about going to huddles, but usually it's the supervisor with the two managers that are talking, or a supervisor and a lead tech, but it's not the whole team that's being a part of. So trying to create those types of cultures so that of one voice, so that we do get a better understanding. And usually in those environments where we've created, where we have a voice, it starts tense initially, absolutely. But then you see the temperature go down the more they're with each other, the more the information is shared. And I know it's not just about voice, but I think we have to model. So if I am the SPD manager and Luella is the peri-op director or manager, I cannot be talking out of the side of my neck about Luella to the OR, to the SPD staff, and likewise, she can't do that to her OR staff. They need to see us united, coming together, with one common goal, and we have to model that. That's a huge voice. A voice is not always what comes out of your mouth. It's the intentional influence you're trying to make, and if we're intentional in how we communicate with each other as leaders, you are making a huge impact on how our associates then will begin to relate to each other.
Yeah.
So you see, one of the things I would say is, even during the huddle, even if as a peri-op, you usually would find the leader, but you'd find the coordinators, the team care coordinators, in that you could ask SPD to send somebody to represent SPD to this huddle. And when the person come, embrace them and show them that, look, we're a team together. We need to get that together for that to happen tomorrow. So I'm agreeing with you. It should not just be managers of SPD and that. We should be able to send some representation and let them engage and know that it's a team effort. We're doing this to get that done and to achieve a certain goal. So I'm agreeing with you 100%. And I'm going to take that with me, as to include, when I have my huddle, ask SPD to send me somebody to represent SPD. and then introduce that person and embrace them as part of the team, because we need them also to make the day go smoothly and efficient.
I love that. Embrace them. That's so powerful. Because I've seen it before where SPD goes to the huddle and then it becomes a this versus them. But that true embracement that we're one team together in that huddle, like I adore you. I think that's amazing. That's such a great insight.
All right. I love it. Let me see if I have any questions over here. If there's something you all want to share or something that you want to say that we didn't come around to, feel free. Jump out there. You don't have to wait on a question. You don't have to be like, oh, we moved away from it. This is knowledge and nonsense. And the things we're saying actually help individuals vet what's knowledge and what's nonsense. It is some nonsense out there. But if there's nothing to replace the nonsense will be perpetual. It will circle back. So we need to replace it with knowledge, sound knowledge, which is why I really do my utmost to have, subject matter experts, people who can speak to it, not just read about it, not just postulate and be a pundit, but no, seriously, this is what we do. And so people who can speak to it. So if there's something on your heart, as I'm looking over here for questions and all these comments, go ahead and share whatever you like to share. And if it's not, no pressure.
Well, I'll take a dive into just culture for a second, because this is something I'm pretty passionate about. And a lot of the focus tonight's been on the human being and on the relationship part and making conversations safe. And just culture to me really can help drive that when your team is storming. So some of the pieces that I really like about it is so first of all, like, what is just culture? It's a system of shared accountability between the organization that are accountable for the systems we design, right? Our policies and our procedures, and then how we respond to the behaviors of those that work within the organization in a fair and a just manner. And so when you first get going into just culture, you realize pretty quickly it requires a change in focus from errors and mistakes and outcomes to more of a system design and management of the behavioral choices, right? So instead of hammering someone about the missing indicator in their tray or the mix-up that happened with this trait at that, you're implementing some different controls in place to get the results you want to get, that you want to achieve. And so I think the part that resonates the most deeply with me with a just culture is that the individual, whether it's the technician, it's the educator, it's the manager, it's the nurse, it doesn't matter who it is in the system, that they shouldn't be accountable for a system failing in like a process that has been designed and it's out of their control. And so that equality that comes from designing an appropriate system and then watching your team achieve, and also from the storming perspective between departments, if you're both working in a just culture environment, the outcome is fairly clear for risky behavior and risky choices versus, staying within the appropriate protocols and processes.
Okay, so I just want to sum up what I believe I'm hearing you say. Now, you said a lot, but I want my takeaway to be similar. No, I love it. I love it because I really wanted to ask about just culture. I'm a human behavior consultant. So I was like, I've heard that a few times tonight. So let's get an exposition. Let's expound on that. Mm-hmm. So what I hear you saying is you actually approach it from a behavioral standpoint. So you can get it poor practices and poor habits within the workspace. And in the end, that will have a better impact on those errors. It's not as reactive or transactional as here's an error, here's a write-up.
Yes.
As it is transformative, let's adjust these behaviors.
Yes.
Let's not write you up for being late. Let's adjust the fact that you are habitually late. You are habitually not doing something that needs to be best practice with these instruments.
Well, and if the policy or the procedure or the instructions or the education are inadequate, well, that process is perfectly designed to give you the result that it does. And so what I really feel like when you get going with Just Culture is it puts a lot of onus on the leadership, where you've got to design the system safely and in a way that, and you have to bring in your stakeholders. You have to bring in your frontline techs, your educators, other folks to build that think pot of how do we achieve as a team, right? And that system is going to continue to change as you bring in new products, as you bring in new equipment, those type of pieces. And it really takes when a critical failure happens, the result of that failure is not necessarily a part of the discussion. It's, what led up to it? How can we make better choices as a team? What parts did I not do to appropriately support the result that I want to see? And in the end, it also creates, we don't learn in environments of blaming and fear, right? We learn in educational environments where we are supported and where we are nurtured.
Listen, I'm checking in with you every quarter, because often, and what I do with the training and things like that, people are looking for engagement, and they're always like, we need more engagement and morale, but they're looking for engagement from entry level, like up through supervisor and management. What you're saying requires engagement from management up through executives. So I'll be checking in monthly. I want to see. I believe it can work. And
it's high reliability.
We need to start that one.
Yeah, high reliability organization principles. It's got to come from all the way. You got to have that support from the top all the way down. Just Culture is the same. And it really has a check and balance for me too, because when I'm getting ready to make a decision and I'm evaluating a risk, does the social benefit outweigh the risk I'm about to take with maybe an IUSS of a tray, with an unstable patient? What are the ramifications of that for me? So wow. As a leader, it holds me deeply accountable to not only my leaders, but my team, right?
Yes, I love it. Hey, we only have a few moments left. Listen, if you're watching and even on the replay, please go, even now, and connect with these individuals on LinkedIn. These are some amazing resources. They're amazing resources. Earlier today, Jamel was talking about why, when someone was wanting something, and she says, why? Why? And so there was a comment that said, why is this? It's a conditional. But I understood. I'm going to expound a little bit, Jamel. When she's saying why, she's not saying why to alienate the person. If she asks you why that many times, please understand you're being coached so that you can adequately communicate to your upline, so that you can use language to move your needle forward, so you can use language to secure what you need for your department. Because she's not the only one asking why. She's just the only one asking you why. But guarantee when that request goes up, it's going to be a why. And if there's not a decent answer for the why, or if you don't answer in the language they speak, more than likely there's a high probability that purchase won't be made at that time. And so you want to be able to articulate why. Not, well, you see you keep messing up. The sterilizer broke 3 times this month. So no, why? Why? This is a barrier to throughput. This is the reason right now that cases are being delayed and canceled. We want to be able to provide so these physicians can do their procedures. Because physicians, it's not like back in the day when they only worked at one hospital. They treat hospitals like hotels sometimes. They will go have their procedures somewhere else. So if you happen to have a Jamel Roth asking you why 3 or 4 times, woosah, don't be defensive. And just take a moment and realize she's asking you why for a reason. For a reason. And that's probably her. She's giving you something that you can run with. So Arlene, you put HRO. I don't know what that means. Let us know in the chat. Last question here is bark at the moon, shout from the rooftop. What does your voice say? Or what do you want your voice to say? Like the things that you're doing, what do you want your voice? And it may have more than one saying, but for pressure point and knowledge and nonsense tonight, what do you want your voice to say? I want my voice to tell people, don't risk what you work so hard to get. That's the hold your form. Don't make stuff personal that's not personal. Hold your form. Hold your form, use your voice. Hold your form, use your voice. Don't let somebody poke you in your emotions and now you're embarrassed and you're about to risk everything you worked for. You wanted this management position, remember? Don't give it up because somebody told a lie on you. Hold your form. Hold your form, use your voice. So that's what I want my voice to say. What do you shout from the rooftop? Why are you intentional about your voice? Who wants
Because
to
my
go?
voice matters.
Because your voice
Because
matters.
my voice matters towards passionate.
All right. So you want your voice to say my voice matters. So that's for you
My voice
and for
matters.
others. So that means their voice matters too, right?
So
Kudos.
our voices matters. Our voice matters in healthcare.
Come on. I love
I
it.
love that.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. For me, it's about showing the world that sterile processing are professionals. That I'm not gonna say what our initials, what people call us sometimes, but it's really about helping to be a voice to help move the industry towards being recognized as a professional profession. There's probably better words for that. And that also on top of that, that our industry does need to change and can be better. We need to welcome innovation. We need to welcome technology. We need to welcome new ideas. And we need to be respectful and learn from the old ideas as well. So that's really what my voice is about.
Love it. Marie?
I think when I hear the word voice, for me, I hear the word advocacy, and tagging on to Marjorie, where she's talking about advocacy for our industry. I think the piece that resonates with me is advocacy kind of champions a better world. An advocate does that not just with their words, but with their actions. So it's character is what you see when no one's watching you. Yeah. And so for me, it just kind of comes back to advocacy and championing for a better place for our industry and the people that work within it.
Yep. I love it. Miss Ross, Jamel, shout from the rooftop.
They all took my what I was going to say. Really, if I were just talking about the industry with sterile processing, I would stand on the rooftop and say that you matter. You matter. That would be the one thing, you matter. And the other thing is, do you with integrity. That's the other one. Those are my two things. You matter and do it with integrity. Nobody can mess you. They can't take you off your game if you do it with integrity. Nobody can take you off your game, no matter what they come at you with. I'm being integral, intentional, and integral. So I just say we matter within the whole system. We matter to the world, and then that what we do with integrity. That would be what I would shout from the rooftop.
I love it. Hey, Arlene says, yes, mic drop again. She did let me know HRO, high reliability organizations and tasks. I want to say thank you all. Thank each of you for being here tonight. I so appreciate it. I've learned a lot. I like to sit in the room right here. I just want to be in this room right here because there's wisdom, there's insight, and listen, there's mentorship. Y'all better connect with these people. Y'all think I'm playing. Y'all better connect with these people on LinkedIn. Let somebody help you with your voice as well. So if you're listening, when you're listening and you're sharing this, know that you have a voice. My hope with this is that you will decide to be intentional with your voice, that you will point your voice where you want it to go, that your voice will not only be reactive, but it will be proactive. It will be planning. It will put stuff in place even before anybody knows that you have that or you're doing that you're doing things where they said even behind the scenes, so that when you show up, you're only showing up with what you've been doing anyway. And so I just want to thank you ladies so much tonight for being here. Mr. Perkins, feel better. We miss you. We hope you have a speedy recovery. You know, get you some fluids or whatever you need there and some rest. But if there's nothing else, ladies, we're going to shut this one down. And again, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. It was awesome. Awesome.
Wonderful.
Thank you.